welcome to The State. On this show, we probe the issues and dig these solutions. We are glad you could join us. Once again, thank you for choosing us. My name is Gabriel 𝗟𝗡𝗩𝗘 Ankrah. Stay for details.
To avoid the heavy vehicular traffic in Ankrah after a hard day's work, then enjoy a short stay in the new Wesley Tower's spacious and beautiful rooms. Our 6 suites provides a comfortable treat after a long day of exploration. Enjoy modern amenities, breathtaking views in the city of Ankrah's ambassadorial enclave, and the utmost comfort during your stay. The property gives you a warm reception in our main entrance foyer with a classic central chandelier lighting as you enjoy affordable sumptuous meals from our restaurant. We have in place male-female washrooms, spacious car park, and an on-site clinic. Wesley Towers is designed to make you feel safe, offering you the needed luxurious personal space. It comes with affordable pricing package. Please contact for details and inspection. 0503 109 978 or 0500 166 304. 0556 302 880 or 0243 614 423. Wesley Towers, offering you a safe, secured, luxurious space.
Welcome back. Let us settle for W Breeze. On W Breeze, what we do is to give you an executive summary of what the topic for consideration for the day is all about. So this afternoon, we're focusing on the prisons system in Ghana. So Ghana's prison system is managed by the Ghana Prison Service, which is responsible for the administration of all prisons and rehabilitation of prisoners. However, stakeholders have bemoaned the poor state of Ghana's prisons and have called for incessantly called for reforms with our prison system. Some of the challenges that faces Ghana's prison system let me start by one: overcrowding. Ghana's prisons are severely overcrowded with more inmates. Prisons that are originally designed to take about 9,000 inmates are now taking about 14,000. The second challenge they face is the poor living conditions, and many of our prisons lack basic amenities like water, clean water, access to clean water, sanitation, and healthcare. Basic things, poor conditions in our services, limited resources. The service itself, Ghana Prison Service, faces significant funding constraints, and this goes a long way to affect the provision of food and clothing that are provided inmates. Many of us have bemoaned the amount that is spent on food. You see the quality of food they take, the way they appear. So the financial constraints on the service itself is a major challenge. Corruption. The good old corruption, if I can say it so, or the age-long corruption has not spared the Ghana Prison Service. There have been issues and instances where corruption within the prison system, and they've been accused of bribery and extortion. So it's not been spared, the issues of corruption. The challenges of access to justice in Ghana has resulted in the high numbers of remand cases that we have. so many people in prison who have not been sentenced, but they are there. Approximately, we say 26% of about 13,500 prisoners in Ghana are currently on remand. They have not been sentenced. 26%. If you are looking at 13,500, 26% of this number have not been sentenced. They are on remand. Experts have bemoaned the high rate of remand cases that we have, and they have feared that they could be a threat to our enviable record of Ghana being one of the signatories to international human rights treaties and all that. Consequently, in curbing this, should I say, congestion in our prisons or high incidence of remands, Ghana has introduced the Justice for All program, and this Justice for All program sends justice to the doorstep of the prisoners, where judges move to the prison to handle cases and free those who could be asked to go without trials. But that notwithstanding, some believe that the Justice for All program has not really achieved what it set itself to achieve. It has not, the pace at which it has traveled, the necessary changes that the program sought to do or achieve has not been achieved. We asked this afternoon that in the face of the alarming numbers of remand cases and the challenges that prisons administration faced, we ask, what form should be undertaken to change the situation? Stay with me. I'll be back with my guests to find out more.
Nyansa, it's Shan and Peninano, and I agent in Peninano. The baby biara and Penifuashia, Naya Shire Green. The open Yansano, or Ben Wa, or the good year, Chadrimu good year, and a coffee. Penia Sargent, and some more drop, and some polo. Somewhere, ye tear bobra, a co ye, a frasi frito, near open Yansano, or Manguan Guenia say, the Peninsula Agony, the Bay Shira, Amano, and then in Chirima. Yadamwasi.
Jack in penning in Soyagony, Jemre, Nashayan, Mimninde, Nimimninde Pia, and no pat no watching, or Wesleyan television so.
Welcome back. So on the show this afternoon, we are looking at the state of the prisons in Ghana, or Ghana's prisons. We will seek to navigate the prevailing challenges of our prison system and then find out remedies or reforms that can be brought to our prison system. I in my introduction earlier mentioned the alarming numbers of prisoners on remand and the record of our human rights as a country. If your warrant expires and you are still not being tried or sentenced and you are still there, is that not the flagrant offense of your rights as a citizen? The Constitution makes provision for your rights to be upheld and protected at all times. So look at our prison system. This week you've heard about the example of Gabriel who has been on remand for so many years. Finally, of almost about 10 years, he's granted bail. So this afternoon we're going to look at the prison system in the face of access to justice. So look at the prison and access to justice. And we have the expert, as always, on the show to help us navigate the issues. We are joined in the studio at a very known face, legal practitioner, always been with us, always on time, 𝗟𝗑𝗩𝗘. JB, welcome to the state.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year,
we haven't had any legal cases for you too. But this afternoon we have
a lot of
one
work to be done.
Yes, a lot of work to be done. And we are joined online via Zoom by he is the Bishop of the Fosu Diocese of the Methodist Church. He's also served as a chaplain of one of the prisons in Mamobi some time ago. The Right Reverend Superintendent retired Anthony Brown. Bishop, sir, welcome to the state. We Bishop work the line for Bishop to join us. Also on online via Zoom, joining us in the discussion is an evangelist to the prisons. He's an evangelist to the prisons himself. Served jail term, or been in prison for over 25 years. He will share his experience with us. Pastor Richard. Pastor Richard, if you can hear me. Nyako, Pastor Richard Nyako, welcome to the state.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. So we having these gentlemen help us with the discussion on the show this afternoon. Let me begin with you, Pastor Richard Nyako. I want you to lay the foundation for our discussion. So share with us the experience in a typical prison in Ghana. How is it like?
Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to thank you, the host, and also this privilege for me to be part of this discussion. To say anything about prisons, I would like first to also say a very big thanks to the Prisons Director General, Mr. 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗘, and all the chaplains, and then the officers on board as well. I would like to start by saying that it has been the grace of God. When I found myself in prison, it was all about, had not been God on my side, I couldn't have come out today. It was God. And the experience is not that friendly at all. But just as I said, because with God all things are possible, even though it was very hard and difficult situation, but I was able to come out successfully by the help of God. So these are the few things I can share basically on my experience that I have in the prisons. If that will permit, then we will dive into it more. Thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you very much, Richard. Right Reverend, sir, if you have joined us, you were at the administrative part of the system. So, so in effect, we were running the show. But once I get your take on that, let me come to JB in the studio. JB, your preliminary comments on our prison system.
Yes, thank you, Nyi. As our brother who has had a real-time experience mentioned, it is not that of a pleasant situation. And I believe that as a human rights activist, I would say that every human being is entitled to their human dignity. We have to be treated in a manner that is in consonance with our nature, that we should be provided with some basic amenities that we need for our survival. When one is convicted or has a brush with the law, as you rightly mentioned, there are about 26% of people in our prisons who are just on remand. They have not even been sentenced or convicted. And so it suggests that there is a lot that has to be done at these places. Over the years, our constitution that creates the Prisons Council at the national level, at the regional level, was promulgated in 1992. And over the years, they are in charge of the management of these prisons to the extent that they should provide the dignity that is required of these persons who are kept there. But over the years, we've had all these challenges, and not much has been done to curb these challenges and make sure that these places are well kept, they are afforded the basic amenities, they are provided with the best of healthcare and all that, while they are still going trials or while they are convicted. Eventually, the ultimate goal is that when people are punished and being sent to these places, it is not just a mere punishment, but the rationale is to put them in a position where they would be reformed and can be reintegrated back to society for those of them who are on a specific period of time and not there for life. That they would be able, while there, they would be reformed. And all, in fact, all of them, they would be reformed to the extent that once they come out, they can be reintegrated and be useful to the society once again. And so there is a lot that has to be done.
A lot to be done. Okay, let's move you straight to the concept of justice and then remand. So look at the concept of justice, and then when we say remand, what is it to the person who does not follow?
Yes, so I would give a background to this.
Please do.
Constitutionally, every person who is accused of a crime put before our law courts is entitled to a key presumption, that is the presumption of innocence. That it is incumbent on the state who, through the Attorney General, initiates and conducts criminal prosecutions to prove that indeed this person has committed a crime. And so the burden, the ultimate burden in respect of criminal trials is on the prosecution to prove that a person is guilty of an offense. And so once you are presented, the mere fact of you being in court does not mean you are guilty. You are presumed to be innocent until you yourself, on your arraignments before the court, you would plead guilty that I am guilty. Then in that manner, you have pleaded guilty, and so from then sentence will be delivered. But once you plead not guilty and you have not yet been found to be guilty, you are innocent. Now an innocent person should therefore be accorded all the fundamental human rights under our constitution. Primarily the right to personal liberty. That right allows you to live your life freely, allows you to move freely without any restrictions. And so in that regard, upon presentation to the court then, and in the tenets of fair trial, the court has the discretion to grant you bail pending your trial. And when one is granted bail, sometimes there is this misconception that people think that the moment a person is granted bail, it means that he's committed an offense and we've left him to be walking around. That is not the case. The bail has been granted pending the trial of the person to determine his guilt or otherwise. And so the bail is even granted on certain terms and conditions, such that the requirements for bail, primarily, the law will be looking at, Criminal Procedure Act will be looking at whether or not the person has a fixed place of abode, such that because the primary consideration for the grant of bail is that you would at all material times present yourself for the trial. And so for the court to determine that, then they will be looking at factors such as whether or not you have a fixed place of abode, whether, your family ties to the community. The law will be looking at how you have cooperated with the police so far. The law will be looking at whether you have persons who are independent and of good sufficient means to stand surety, such that if we are looking for you, the court is looking for you, we cannot even find you, we can resort to these persons and they would be liable to produce you at wherever you are. And so in an instance where, as I said, it's discretionary, and so it means that the court would exercise its discretion whether to grant you bail or not. And the law makes it clear that bail should not be rescinded or be used as punishment for any person. And so if the court is not using bail as a punishment, but thinks that you have not satisfied any of the primary considerations for which should warrant a grant of bail, then the court would refuse your bail. Now, if the court refuses your bail, then you shall still be in custody pending the trial. And so that is what has resulted in recently the topical issues that you had already made reference to.
The case.
Yes, so that's basically bail. The rescission of the grant of bail, then it means that you have to be kept in custody pending your trial before the courts.
So when we say you are on remand, it means we are keeping you
Yes.
For the trial.
For the trial. For the trial.
And you can be bailed.
You can't be bailed. So let me make this point. These are pure criminal procedure issues. Now, when a person is arraigned before court, most of the time, sometimes at the time you, the lawyer, you are even informed. Is, let's say a day before the person is arraigned, they call you at the station. This person has been arrested. Maybe next morning they are producing them before the court, because if a police restrict you or arrest you or detain you, they have within 48 hours to produce you before the court. Other than that, they have to grant you what we call the police inquiry bill. And so most of the time, what comes to you at a time which is late, and then you appear in the court, and so we may make an oral application for bail, which is within our criminal procedure. So bail may be made on oral terms. Now, if the court grants it, that's okay. The person would go on bail. If the court should refuse it, you have the opportunity to make a formal application before the court, where you file a motion and an affidavit in support and depose to all these key requirements that I made mention of. If the person has a fixed place of abode, how cooperative the person has been, the offense, and I mean currently all offenses are bailable. And so yes, all those things, and then persons who can stand surety for these persons. Now, in an event where even the formal application is denied, you have the alternative to either appeal that denial of the formal application, or should the circumstances, some circumstances change, you have the right to make a repeat application before the same court. But as I said, it is on the basis that some circumstances have changed. For instance, it may be the case that for some reason or not, the matter has unduly delayed as expected. And in that manner, some circumstances could change. It could be health issues. There are instances where a court has at a later date granted bail based on health issues of health conditions. And so if some of those circumstances should change, the lawyers can again make a repeat application for bail, and same may be granted. And so we should see that the law affords all these rights, because the grant of bail, the grant of bail or otherwise, is a human rights consideration, it's a human rights issue. And so the law would not easily want to see that a person's human rights is being infringed upon. That is why it makes provision for all these avenues, such that the right to personal liberty would be protected.
You made reference to the bailable offenses, and I think was it Pebu versus Martin Pebu and the Attorney General. Yes. So all those, I think, under Act 30.
Act 30.
Yeah, 96 criminal offences procedure.
Section 96.
So now rape and those crimes that were listed there are all bailable.
All offences are bailable. And it's on the premise that you realize that when we began, I made reference to the constitutional provision and Article 19.2. A person who is presumed, you are presumed to be innocent. And so, though you may have been charged with the offense of rape, eventually it could turn out that you are not guilty. And so, to the extent that the law makes provision that you are presumed to be innocent until you plead guilty or you are proved to be guilty, it means you are innocent. And if you are presumed to be innocent, then why should your human rights to move to personal liberty be curtailed? So that was the rationale and the constitutional basis for which the court made that pronouncement that all offenses are bailable. And so we do not segregate that this is a high offense. And so, as high as the offense may be, which may warrant a capital punishment eventually, like the offense of murder, the court can still exercise its discretion in granting bail.
Great. Right Reverend Superintendent Retired Anthony Brown. Bishop, sir, thank you for joining us on the phone. Welcome to the States. We really need to work to get Bishop online. Richard Nyako, if you could hear us, evangelist.
Thank you very much, my brother.
Okay, so Bishop, sir. So this afternoon we are looking at the state of our prisons, and then we'll navigate the challenges that are we've had evangelist Richard Nyako, who has served a jail term before, and then in the studio we have a legal practitioner, JB Afrifa. We've looked at the law, we've looked at the legal definitions and concepts of justice, and then remand. the administration of justice is with the prison service. From where you sit, when you've administered a prison complex before, how does it come dealing with the high numbers of remand inmates in your center or complex?
Like my brother is explaining, normally when maybe you commit an offense and then you are taken to court, there are times that before you go through the normal court procedure and arrest, if they are not able to actually convict you, then you go to the prison as a remand. But then when you are convicted, you'll be given your sentence. And then the policeman who is sending you to the prison to be able to hold a paper that describes you as a remand person or someone who has been convicted.
Bishop?
So but the policeman bringing an evidence that you are going to maybe an accepted court and then you'll be convicted, you cannot be accepted there.
So the police comes with some a document to,
apart from maybe the government or the president saying that you should be sent to the prison.
okay. So help us with this to understand your terminologies.
So if you look at the difficulties and the problems that they are facing, one of them will be overcrowding. And when we talk about overcrowding, then we are saying that a place where normally maybe 5 people should be, now about 10 people are there.
Bishop, sir, if you could reduce the volume on your TV set. We are now speaking to you via your phone, so the volume on the TV can die down so that we do the phone interview. We getting feedback. Yeah, so just reduce the volume on the TV set.
Okay, so in effect, like if you look at Ghana prison, for instance, the whole prison system, now you have about 14,000 plus inmates, which maybe normally would have maybe handle about 8,000 for the whole nation. So you can just imagine how people will go there and then you not be able to help them in the way that you want to help them. So apart from overcrowding, we now talk about space. You know that inmates are sent there and prison officers, they are supposed to keep custody of them, that protect them so that they don't go out. Then they are to speak for their welfare. Apart from their welfare, they are to reform and rehabilitate them and then bring them back even to be a responsible citizen, what you call reintegration. So for you to be able to do that, in this case, let's say they come in and then you take them through interviews. You will know that this one is this has mental problem, or this person has spiritual problem, or this person is maybe substance abuse. You will be able to separate them and then you handle them in a way so that they can be able to overcome their situation. But this is the case that you may not have space there. And then you may have some people who are maybe near high school leavers or DEC leavers. When they come, we are not supposed to mingle them together. We call classification. You be able to classify these people and then treat them in a way that by the time they finish their sentence, they will be wealthy citizens of the nation. And even apart from the problem of overcrowding and lack of space, you can also say that there's a need for us to help the officers themselves. Let's say that you recruit someone, senior high school officer, into the prison. From there, you should to help the person so the person can improve upon himself or herself. To the extent that when it comes to counseling or maybe psychology, the person can be able to handle the image as it should. Even though we have other officers there, those officers will also need to go through specialization. And it is difficult normally to be able to go ahead to be able to do all this. Yeah. And apart from that, we know that we need to educate them, like I said. And education is big. Let's say Senior Correctional Center, for instance, we have classrooms there. But when they finish the BEC, we need to send them to the senior high school. So who follows them up? Sometimes they go and they come back. But if we have classrooms there, they can continue with the SHS 1, 2, 3 before they go to university. And apart from that, you look at their feeding. I think that recently the minister in charge of Twitter made mention of how they are giving them berries. They are not even feed cats. Let's say, for instance, you are giving one Ghana is 80%, and you are supposed to be fair price. And you can just imagine what you are supposed to take in. And all these things are programs that, as a nation, we need to handle if we want a standardized form of reformation and rehabilitation for our army.
Yeah, great. So we have seen on the screens and other visuals of the state of our prisons and how the inmates are managed or handled. Bishop, I'll move to the evangelist who has been in prison before. But before then, can you help with education? When you some of your prisons, I know that the James Fort was initially intended for only remand. It should be a center for remand until it was closed down, and now people, they were moved to Nsawam and all that. You have your terminologies like maximum prisons, minimum prison. When you do that, the types that you list, what goes into the definition? Yeah, Bishop Brown.
Please come again.
Yes, I'm asking that. I'm asking you to give the classification of your.
Please come again.
Yeah, I'm asking you to help us understand the classification of your prison center, prison. Should I say facilities?
Okay. Some are
maximum, some are minimum, some are medium.
Okay. Okay, you are talking about the types of prisons.
Yes, the types.
I will say that Senior Correctional Center, that one is for young people who are less than 18. Then you have people who commit offense like we'll talk about misdemeanor, like theft or stealing. Those people, we need a separate place that we need to bring those people. Then there are some people too who are maybe substance abuse, they will commit it because of substance abuse. You can't bring them all together. Then you have people who have caused murder. So in the prison system, we have maximum prisons, Then we have we also have main prisons, and then apart from main prisons, we also have.
Yeah, I know maximum, medium, and minimum. If what the inscriptions I've seen on the.
Then apart from main prison, we can also have a place like James Camp Prison. And when we talk about James Camp Prison, they don't come there straight. They don't come there straight from the course. You need to go to Nsawam or home or to other prisons. You serve some of your sentence. And when you have good behavior, that you are brought to James Camp Prison. So when you are brought to maybe James Camp Prison, you are being polished so that you can be reintegrated into the system.
Into the system. Okay. So we assume that the maximum ones are for, they have the high walls. The security features are high. It means those.
So the ratification, yes, maximum one, yes.
Okay, thank you. Viewers, if you are just joining us, we are.
So ratification now will be based on the type of offense they committed.
Okay, right.
The type of offense that they committed.
The type of offense that they've committed. So viewers, this is the state. If you are just joining us, this afternoon we are looking at the state of the Ghana's prisons, and we are navigating the prevailing challenges in our prisons and looking at reforms that are being called for, how we can introduce them to effect the changes that we want to see in our prisons, because the individual liberties and freedoms are issues of human rights, and the fact that you've been caught or sent to the court doesn't make you a criminal if you've not been tried and you've not been found guilty. So that is what we've been looking at so far, and we have in the studio legal practitioner J.B. Afrifa on the side of the law, helping us to appreciate and understand it. We are joined via phone. His Right Reverend Dr. Superintendent Retired Anthony Brown, former chaplain of the prison service at Mamobi prisons, currently Bishop of Osu, and Richard Nyako, who has served. Yes, we are right to say he's an ex-convict because he's been in jail and back, sharing his experiences, now an evangelist to the prisons. So let me come to you quickly, Richard Nyako, pastor or evangelist, if you can hear me. If you don't mind, do you mind share how long were you on remand and access to justice whilst on remand? How was it? Richard? Okay, Richard will work Richard's line, and then we'll get back to JB. Was at it. You mentioned the human rights part and our procedures and court arrangements. You know, in criminal cases, I think you need legal representation. Come what may, you need legal representation. How is our legal aid scheme system?
It was one of the things I was considering, irrespective of these discussions. There's been times I've represented certain clients who, I mean, in fact, for one of them, he had been on remand for about 2 years before I came into the matter. And in some of these things, it's quite unfortunate because the issue of legal aid avail, sometimes it could just be one of the reasons that they are unable to afford legal services. It's just one of the reasons. There could be other factors for which they do not have representation. But one of the key challenges for some of these people is that they cannot afford the services of a private legal counsel. But that is why our state institutions are created. For instance, the Legal Aid Commission. It has its very roots from our constitution. And so it should tell you that it's an office that we don't pay so much attention to, but it has its roots in the constitution, and subsequently, by an act of parliament, it has been established such that they would come in and provide legal services for these persons who are in vulnerable states and are unable to pay for the service of it. Because, for instance, if you are committed that in the case of murder, the committal proceeding is done before we start a trial. And if you are facing such a charge, you need a legal counsel to guide you through the process in that manner. And so in an instance where these persons are unable to afford, and you do not see the representation for them by the Legal Aid Commission, sometimes it begs some critical questions to be asked. But again, we also should be looking at how resourced is that office. I've had the privilege of listening to one of their directors in recent times, and they do complain about the human resource that they even have. Lawyers being encouraged, a lot of them motivated to join the commission to render these services, because they also come under the public prosecutors, umbrella. And so we should be looking at the structures that are in place for them, the resources that they have, and all those things, because sometimes their numbers are not so much, and you can imagine the number of people who go in and who go to their offices in a day to seek for some of these legal services. It's uncountable. And so as we are talking about, looking at our prison systems, they've been able to be resourced and all that, we should also be looking at the other aspect of it, and a very crucial aspect of it, that's the legal representation, and particularly the Legal Aid Commission, how they ought to be resourced, how we have to encourage our lawyers to join the commission and render these services to these persons and the state at large.
Great. So the legal aid debate has to continue. We need to speak for resourcing legal aid. Some of the inmates who have been on remand have complained that sometimes they go to the officers do not send them to the court on time. They get to the court and they said they called your case, you were not there, so it's been adjourned, and that has caused the delay in having access to justice. Sometimes they will tell you there's no vehicle, there's no fuel, so we can't take you to the court and your cases. So many of these things that deny them of access to justice. I will take a breather. When we are back, we'll look at the reforms and the way forward. Please stay, don't go anywhere.
Sorry, not sure.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Get ready for a transformational morning experience.
Sorena Shrine is here to build our spirituality, mental and physical well-being.
Through positive, inspiring actions and stories.
We bring you exciting activities and conversations that develop us as a people and as a nation.
We take a look at the trending issues in Ghana and the rest of the world.
And we also review the impacting stories from our local newspapers.
Every morning, we bring you stories of hope, change, and renewal.
We empower you through the Word of God and provoke you to live the purposeful life destined for you.
Join us, Anita Kwaku
and the Reverend Ajika Vincent Agbamanya, Monday to Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we take you on an inspiring journey, live and exclusively on WTV.
You may also join us on Facebook at WTV Ghana and on YouTube at Wesleyan TV Ghana.
Sorry, not shrine.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Sorena Shrine is brought to you by
Danwell Insurance, Multi-Credit Savings and Loans,
and the Methodist University Ghana.
Welcome back from the break. We are looking at the prison system, a particular interest in being on remand for so many years, and then your case is not called, your trial has not begun, you've not been sentenced, and you keep going back and forth to prison and to the courts. And then legal practitioner 𝗟𝗜𝗩𝗘 is here helping us to appreciate how the justice system works. And then we are also joined on the line by the Right Reverend Dr. Superintendent Retired Anthony Brown, who had administered prisons before retiring. He was in charge of the Mamobi. He was a chaplain at Mamobi prisons complex, helping us to see the challenges, what they go in. It's mentioned overcrowding. There's they lacking the space and other amenities to make sure that the rights of these prisoners are well respected and catered for. So somebody will say, until you find yourself in that situation, you wouldn't know and appreciate what the enormity of the issue at stake. Before we went on break, the lawyer JB was telling us about legal aid. Some cannot afford, and in matters of criminal cases, you need to have legal representation. So wherein comes legal aid and the schemes, what are accessible for us to make sure they have justice served them. Bishop, sir, let me come to you on the other side of the line and ask. Some of the remand persons have blamed prison officers for delaying the process. Sometimes there's been miscommunication between officers and court registrars, and sometimes you say there's no fuel in the vehicle has broken down. Are you part of the problem? Superintendent retired.
Thank you very much, my brother. For remand, to me, I think that normally it is a policeman who bring them. You see, the CID is in charge of maybe trying to make sure that they are convicted. But maybe they will go and they will not speak the truth. And then they will go and then they will be brought back. So as for the police officers, maybe blaming the police officers that they delay, they cannot be true. Because you come in, and when you come with a policeman, the policeman handling the case, he is supposed to help you so that you're able to go through it as early as possible. And then recently, they arranged for some lawyers to go to the prison, to go and sit on those cases. And I think that is some of the things that they should be doing. I wanted to talk to honorable lawyer about the legal aid. And then some of us, when we were growing up, we had that volunteering spirit. People were planning to go and do law, and they will be at court. And the people who don't have money and the rest, they will start in for them. Those people, where are they now? You see that we keep blaming other people that is that, but we have good people. And we can have some lawyers volunteering to be at the court so that they can sign for such people who have no help, no one to be able to help them. But sometimes you will hear the case of the inmates, and sometimes horrible. Before maybe their parents can, when they have been convicted, they have to go into prison. So I want to maybe, if my honorable lawyer can stand,
he will respond.
Maybe he can start that and organize some new lawyers to be able to represent that. It can be very helpful.
Okay, so I'll make lawyer respond to you. But
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, we do. Bishop.
So in fact, it is not.
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm saying that the prison officers should not be maybe blamed for the delay. It is the judges and then the policemen.
Okay.
Every case, when you have a problem, you go to the police station. The CID handles that. So as long as the CID is ready to send you to court at the rest, when you only comply that today you are supposed to go to court, so we send you there. But as for the person to ensure that you are convicted or not convicted, it is the judge or the CID person.
Okay, Bishop. Somebody just sent me a question to ask the prison officers that when you take we are looking at healthcare. We know you have infirmaries at the facilities, but if it goes beyond and you take them to the hospitals outside the prisons, the major ones, who takes care of them, the bill and all that?
Normally, when you are taken to the hospital, the prison officers will have to go and they have to go and make sure that they are still. You have to keep custody of them. But it is the government who is supposed to pay for that. And you know the country in which we find ourselves in. Maybe somebody will be treated, and after the person goes through the treatment, some of the money that need to be paid in the rent, the government may not be able to afford. And sometimes you have to go around and then talk to other people to be able to help. So the health system, even though it is a government that is supposed to cater for them, our system or the Ghanaian system now is difficult for the government to be able to do that.
Okay, Richard Nyako, evangelist, you are back online. We've had a.
So sometimes what we do is that when the person is taken to the hospital, when the person is taken to the hospital, when the person is taken to the hospital, somebody has the contact of their parents. We call them. We call the parents, and then they can come and then in collaboration ensure that maybe the person is given a good health treatment before the person can be discharged.
Okay. So it happens that sometimes you call the relatives of the inmates you've taken to the hospital, and they come and then you sort the bill. We are well informed. Richard, you are giving us feedback, terrible feedback. If you could reduce the volume on your set. Richard Nyako, can you hear us?
I can hear you, sir.
Great. So glad to have you join the conversation again. Earlier on, I asked how long you were on remand. If you don't mind sharing that with us, and how access to justice was for you whilst on remand.
Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. As I told you earlier on, I'm still undergoing the treatment at the hospital. But being on remand, I think I spent almost 7 years on remand. Lack of proper prosecution, lack of, I can't stop explaining this. I would have loved to be at the studio to have more time to explain this. But I've been there without court. I've been there without, no CID was coming. But the prison service was able to come out with some legal aid system which have benefited. And my benefit aspect was for the prison to be able to convey me to the court, for the court to look into my case, and upon that, I can say the court convicted me on my own plea to 35 years. After serving the 7 years, the 7 years in remand was not put into consideration. The judge just gave me 35 years imprisonment, and that was all. But that needs more explanation.
Yeah,
which
sure.
I think my time will come.
Great. We really appreciate your time, Richard Nyako, and we will engage you again. We know you are going under medical treatment. We'll engage you again in the studio when you fully recover. We wish you speedy recovery. So we will discharge you, and when you get well, we'll talk to you so that you help us appreciate the issues. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me come to you, JB, in the studio. You heard Richard. Yeah. He was on remand for 7 years.
That's ridiculous.
And he was convicted for 35 years, not taken into consideration. 7 years on remand.
That's ridiculous. As I said, I mean, there are various instances and factors that would account for a person being on remand. And however, the unconstitutionality aspect of it is the fact that though he was on remand for 7 years, he was not considered in the final sentence. That is clearly unconstitutional, because clearly under Article 14(6) of the 1992 Constitution, if you had been in custody during your trial, at the time of sentence, the judge ought to make that clear. Consider, it has to be in consideration at the time of passing sentence on you. The judge ought to consider the number of years that you have spent in custody in respect of that particular offense before it comes to a conclusion on the time that you have to spend. And so that is very unfortunate. There are lots of cases where the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, has overturned and reduced sentences that had that defect of the lack of consideration. So it would come back to the issue of the legal representation, that such that if at that time you have legal representation, they would that would be clear to them that the court did not consider this number of years that you spent, and for that matter, go to the appellate court for a reduction of that sentence, taking into account the period of time that one had spent. But it is quite unfortunate. And about the delays, I mean, I believe that the number of years that he spent on remand and in custody was by occasion of the delay in the trial. If let's say the trial had taken 3 years, probably maybe even if the court had denied him bail, he may have been on remand for just some 3 years. But various factors that account for the delay extended it to the 7 years. And as I said, there are a lot of instances and factors that account for this. Now, sometimes the courts, there are issues where, I mean, there are certain days that you go to the court is not even certain. It is one of the issues that some of us have been championing at the Bar Association, such that we collaborate with the judiciary so that, I mean, there will be a reduction and those things will be kept, such that, I mean, on cases where, in instances where a court is not sitting, at least some notice will be given to the stakeholders involved. For instance, if a person is on remand at Nsawam or a far place, and they have to transport them using state resources all the way to Ankrah, the court complex, and the court is not sitting, it is one of those issues that is worrying. Again, the issue of lawyers being involved and who cause some of these delays. Sometimes things that, I mean, some processes that the lawyers may have to file, maybe they are not doing that on time. Again, some also come with some applications just with the intent to delay the matter. And one of such instances, I mean, the SY Attorney General, Gabriel, made mention of a bill that he filed in Parliament, such that, I mean, it would ensure a speedy trial of some of these instances, and also it would keep the instances where lawyers filed numerous applications to delay the whole trial. And that was as a result of some of these so-called high-profile cases which had been in the system for about 8 years, some of which have been the subject of newly prosecuted filed by the current Attorney General. And so the issues are a lot. But in conclusion, we are saying that we have to do a lot to make sure that these instances are kept, because the more it delays, someone's right is also being infringed upon.
Bishop, sir, I'll come to you for your final words. Bishop Brown.
Yeah, I'm listening, sir.
Yes, your final words before we go briefly.
Now, I think we are looking at reforms.
Yes, reform. Yes, so you can conclude with the reforms and everything. Yes.
I think one of the things that maybe we need to do is, you know, the inmates. If you go through research, you see that the inmates, about 70% of them are between the ages of 18 and 35 years. These are resources that can actually help the country. And you know that the modern guys now, it's not like they want to go and learn carpentry, making and the rest. So I think that the prison to now incorporate, like, they have to ask you, this computer, learning computer, and other things that are more modern. Acting, ICT, those more modern ones. Because nowadays, if you have a son, you tell him to go and learn carpentry. And even that most of the machinery and the rest are modern and the rest. And I also want to ask you to look at the system. We have something called probation. We are talking about overcrowding. It's not every first offender who should be in prison. We can decide that if the first offender, maybe his or her offense is like misdemeanor, the person can be in the house and then do social work for some time, then after that, the person can be released. We have something we also call restorative justice. Now, the justice system is only on maybe punishing the offender. But sometimes, let's look at somebody who has maybe murdered someone. The person who has been murdered or maybe has been affected will be full of fear and the rest. So if you sentence the person into prison, who is working on that person too? So I think that going forward, if we can look at the forensic justice, where the community, the person who committed the crime, or the person who the crime was committed against, can be brought in to be treated, it can be very helpful.
Thank you.
Helpful.
Thank you very much.
And
Bishop.
I'm also asking that if it's possible, they should help so there will be more speeches for classrooms and the rest. So that, like outside, people can go to the prison, people your BEC, but you can come out with a degree on that sort of thing.
Great.
And I think that it's possible.
It is. It is. Thank you very much, Bishop Brown. Richard, we still have you online. Thank you for the commitment and the love to stay on the show, even when we ask you to go and seek medical care as you are already there. So your last words, Richard, your final words.
So my last word is, I still want to thank you about, you mentioned how to get the whole place holistically reformed and everything to be in the right place. So I want to suggest that amnesty should be granted to the prisoners. For a very long time now, President has never done anything concerning amnesty. And the place in line with the projection. We cannot reform the system. We are preaching them, but so far as the overcrowding is concerned, the message will not meet the rightful targets. Officers are doing their best, to the best of my knowledge. Our president has never taken any initiative to reduce. Some have spent 30 years, 35 years. There is a guy I met yesterday, right in the prisons. He spent 40 years and he stayed there. And you go there, you feel that no, government have something to do in order to help the system to move smoothly as we all expected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard Nyapo. Last words, JB, legal practitioner.
So in my final words, I would say that on the global level, there has been a blueprint. In 2015, there was adopted the United Nations minimum rules for standard treatment of prisoners. And it's also called the Nelson Mandela rules. And it's a blueprint for a better treatment of our prisoners, such that it has all the guidelines, the issue of proper file management system, healthcare, among other things. And so it's something that we have to hold in high esteem and look at promulgation. Lastly, I would say that the Vice President is a chairperson of the Prisons Council. And she being a mother figure for a number of people, a staunch member of our beloved church, I would send this message to her that she should make sure and work towards making our prison system very efficient and safeguard the rights of all people who are held in them.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the stage this afternoon. Thank you, JB Afrifa. Thank you, Bishop Superintendent Retired Anthony Brown. Thank you, Nyapo Richard, ex-convict who shared his experience with us. Let's keep the conversation going. Human rights, it's a critical thing that we need to uphold. Let's make sure that prisons are decongested and justice is served speedily. Join us on Wednesday for another conversation. My name is Gabriel, new to Ankrah. Goodbye.